We all know what it feels like when people come to us and say, thank you. You've done something for them and they say thank you, and that makes you feel good. We also know what it feels like when people don't say thank you after you've poured your life into them and they don't say a word. Probably the ugliest word in the English language is the word ungrateful. And we can never admit that we are ungrateful. If somebody comes to us and says, you are a very ungrateful person, immediately we protest. Inside of us, we begin to think about numerous things that we're thankful for. We think of people that have helped us. We retreat to those grateful feelings, to a time of emotional gratefulness. We move our thinking into how we felt. We think about that emotion. And so we say, we are grateful people. Well, ungratefulness is very hard to see in the mirror. The real problem with ungratefulness is that it can shut down an entire relationship. The worst thing we don't see about ourselves is when we're ungrateful. I have never heard a person say to me, I'm an ungrateful person. We just don't see it in ourselves. And it can influence all kinds of relationships in a negative way. If we're ungrateful, it affects our family, it affects our marriage, it affects our work, it affects our school, it affects our church. And I want us to take a look at Luke chapter 17 and see what Jesus says about gratitude. Chapter 17, verse 11 to 13 reads this way. Now on this day, on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee, and he was going into a village. 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. Now in that day, in that culture, leprosy was feared. It was considered contagious. When you had leprosy, you had to live outside of the city, away from any of the population. You couldn't hold a job. You weren't allowed to live with your family. You couldn't go to the temple. You were immediately considered an outcast. And Jesus is walking around Galilee and Samaria, and he hears voices crying out to him, asking him to heal them. So he yells back to the lepers, go show yourself to the priest. You ask, that's a weird response. No, you ask the question, why would he just say, go show yourself to the priest? Well, if you were healed, before you could enter back into society, you had to go to the priest, and the priest had to declare that you were clean, you were healed, you weren't contagious, you could go back. But when Jesus said to them, go and show yourself to the priest, they still had leprosy. When they looked down at their hands, they saw that they were still missing fingers. When they went like this to find their nose was still missing. When they looked at the open sores and stuff, they said, man, we're not healed. Why would we go show ourselves to the priest? Well, the question is, would they have enough faith to say, okay, I don't look like I'm healed, but Jesus said, go show myself to the priest. Perhaps he will heal us. He's healed thousands of others. And so they start off to the temple. And I would have loved to have been around them. I wouldn't have wanted to be them, okay? But as they're walking, all of a sudden their fingers are back on their hands, and the open sores are no longer open sores, and they feel their nose, and their nose is back, and the skin is like baby skin. I'm healed, I'm healed. Oh man, can you imagine how they felt as their body from top of their head to the tip of their toes became brand new, totally healed. Listen to verse 14 and 15. When he saw them, he said, go show yourself to the priest. And as they went, they were cleansed. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. You notice one of them came back. He was the returner. He's saying, well, I am free. And he returns to praise God. Look at what the guy does in verse 16. He threw himself down at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. And look at Jesus' response. Jesus asked, were not all 10 cleansed? You know, I read that and I'm going like, Jesus might have, weren't all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? I just healed 10 of the lepers. Where are the other 9? Verse 18 and 19. Has no one returned to give thanks to God except this foreigner? And then he said to him, rise and go. Your faith has made you well. So we asked the question, how could the other 9 not give thanks? They got back their future. They got back their jobs. They were able to return to their families. Their temple privileges were restored. But out of the 10, only 1 returned. I've been thinking about this, and I really think the other 9 were very grateful. I'm sure they couldn't wait to go to the priest and say, we saw Jesus and we cried out to Jesus and we asked him to heal us. And he said, come and show ourselves to you. And on the way, our fingers grew back and our skin turned into brand new skin. And I got my nose back and I am so thankful. Can you imagine when he went back home to see his wife? And he says, I'm clean. Look, you've been bringing me food, but you haven't been able to get close. But look, I'm well, I'm whole, I'm together. And can you imagine him sitting telling his children, hey, you know, I was walking down the road and I heard Jesus was coming. So I waited at a distance and I called out to Jesus for healing. And he said, go tell the priest. And so on the way, my finger grew back and then my other finger grew back. My nose went back on my face. My skin turned. Can you imagine the feeling of gratefulness they must have had? But there was a problem. The circle wasn't finished. They felt the gratitude, but they didn't express the gratitude to Jesus. Ladies, I'm sure you've told your girlfriends that your husband is a great husband. Maybe you play tennis and you've told your tennis friends your husband is just a terrific guy. You've told others of your gratefulness. And men, you're not very good at expressing your gratefulness at home, and you don't talk too much about your wife to other men, but I am sure there have been times that you have said to your buddies, listen, I have a great wife. I have nothing to complain about. But have you said that to your husband? Have you said that to your wife? Unexpressed gratefulness communicates ingratitude. The unexpressed gratitude is actually a form of rejection or lack of appreciation. Let's just say your wife or your husband or your mom slaves all afternoon to prepare a really good meal for the family that night. And it is so good that everybody sitting at the table gobbles it down, doesn't say a word. They're just spooning it in. They can't get enough of it. And as soon as that last forkful hits their mouth, the cell phones come out and they're texting their friends. The husband gets up and goes watches television. And the wife is sitting there going, didn't they appreciate the meal? What if somebody said, time out, kids, come on back. Hey, listen, did you enjoy the meal your mom prepared for you tonight? Oh, yeah, Mom, that was a great meal. We loved it. It tasted really great. It's one of the best meals we've had this week. And Mom is so happy. But when she doesn't receive thanks, she feels rejection. She feels unappreciated. Why did I slave all day? They would have been happy with a hot dog. Some moms then would get up from the table, go into the kitchen, slam the the dishwasher door shut, and then the husband would walk into the kitchen and make a stupid question or ask a stupid question like, "What's up with you? Why are you in such a bad mood?" And man, it goes the same way with us. The kids come up to us and say, "Dad, can I have 20 bucks? Dad, can I have 40 bucks? Dad, the school pictures came out today. I need some money for the pictures. Dad, can I have the car tonight? Dad, I need another computer. My laptop broke. Dad, will you buy me a car before I go off to college? Dad, I need money for my college application. Dad, I need money for my college." But no one stops and says thanks. And Dad says, "What do you think I am, a cash register?" But you know, our kids are thankful. They just don't express it. If you went up to them and said, "You've got some nice new sneakers there," they would say, "Yeah, my dad gave me these sneakers. He's amazing." Or, "My dad gave me $100 and told me to go out and buy some clothes. So I spent all $100 on these sneakers." Or the wife says, "My husband is such a great provider." But gratitude, unexpressed, is ingratitude. And it applies to every relationship. The father may say to his son, with a little bit of a ticked off attitude, "You are supposed to cut the grass. You live in this family for free. You're going to cut the grass." I'm sure you've said that to your kids occasionally, or about something like that. But after they get done cutting the grass, you go up and say, "Hey, thanks. It looks great." When I owned my own business, when I gave my employees their checks on Friday, I always made it a policy to thank each one of them personally for a job well done. And then I would surprise them with bonuses in their check. Didn't want to make it too often or they'd think they were entitled to it. But I had an employee that actually came up to me and said, "Don't ever expect me to say thanks when you hand me my check. I earned it. It's mine." Well, a year or so after he had said that to me, the business sort of dried up for a little bit after Christmas, and there was no work coming for January and February, and so I had to lay the guys off for 2 months, and at the end of 2 months, I called the guys up and told them that there was work to be had if they wanted to come back. But there was one guy I didn't call. You know why? I felt unappreciated. He wasn't thankful for the job. He wasn't thankful for the paycheck. I know he earned it. Interesting thing, he was my friend. But I didn't hire him back because I felt unappreciated. By him not being grateful, it sent a message to me that he felt entitled. And I wasn't going to play that game. Now, I am convinced that God has created every one of us as acceptance magnets. I tell my wife I don't need to hear anybody tell me what a great sermon it was. I don't need to hear comments. I don't need to get notes. But you know something? When somebody sends me a note in the mail and says, "Thank you for the sermon on Sunday," I go, "Wow, I like that person." We are acceptance magnets no matter how we look at it. We're drawn to relationships where we're accepted and where we're appreciated. And we repel ourselves from relationships where we aren't appreciated because we feel rejected. Again, I'm going to say it. Unexpressed gratitude has the same effect as rejection. Our hearts gravitate to gratitude. Oh, that we would just stop and say, "Honey, thanks for a great meal." Or, "Thank you for working so hard and providing for our family." Or, "Thank you for packing my lunch today." Or, "Thank you for putting money away for college." Or, "Thank you for the paycheck and the job. I really appreciate it." See, gratitude closes the loop in our relationships with God and with others. give you an illustration. If you go to a kid's birthday party, usually the people that are at the birthday party are a bunch of kids and their moms. And they're all sitting around and they're waiting for the presents to be opened. And Billy is the one whose birthday it's for, and he reaches in, he grabs a gift, and he rips off the paper, and it is a football. And Billy is just thrilled to death. He can hardly get the box open to get the football out of that. And his mom is watching Billy. And as Billy is ripping off the box off the football, before he can get that football in his hand and throw it to somebody, his mom says 4 words. What do you say? What do you say? What do you say? And Billy's mom knows that the loop isn't finished till Billy tells Sarah, thank you for the football. I really loved it. Sarah knows he loves the football. She sees the excitement in his eyes, but she needs to hear Billy say, Sarah, thanks for the football. It's something I've wanted for a long time. I love it. And boy, I've heard the loop is just closed. This Halloween, I sat on the front steps of my house and passed out candy. And I decided I was going to make this Halloween fun for me as well as for the kids. And they would come, and I couldn't guess their outfits. Man, I'll tell you, the outfits we wore when I was young had nothing, didn't look anything like the outfits today. I usually was wrong when I took a guess, and I would say to the kids, who are you dressed up like? What is that outfit? One guy came, he was the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. And if I had not known it was a costume, I would have been frightened. That's how bad it was. So after they told me who they were, then I was ready to give them candy. Some of the kids would just, I had a big bucket like this, full of candy. Some of the kids would just reach in and grab a handful and throw it in their thing and run away. Others would just open up their bag and you'd throw a couple pieces of candy in. Others would sit there like this. Are you going to open your bag? Oh, throw it in. Very few of the kids said, thank you. Some of the mothers, though, would sit there and go, what do you say? And the kids would turn around and go, thank you. And if they said thank you, I tried to throw another piece of candy in their bag. I was impressed by the kids that said, thank you. It closed the loop. They were saying, I appreciate it. Jesus said this, weren't there 10 who were healed? Where are the other 9? I call this story, or the call of this story is that God is looking for returners. A returner is someone who is willing to go back to those who enabled them to go forward and say thank you. There are dozens of people in our lives who have enabled us to move forward in our lives. They've invested in us. They've provided jobs for us. They've educated us. They open opportunities for us. They gave us raises. Dozens of people that without their help, we wouldn't have had the opportunities we have to move forward. None of those 10 lepers would have been able to move forward at all in their life unless Jesus had healed them. But only one was a returner. Only one went back to Jesus who had enabled him to move forward and said, thank you. Gratefulness is hard to see in a mirror. Because inside you probably are grateful. But you got to remember to give thanks, be a returner, and say to the person, thank you, thank you, thank you. Mark, bring up the slide, please. Does it look similar to what you got coming in the door? If you didn't get one of these on the way in, you can get them on the way out. John? Okay? That is not 10, question mark. That is an I, an O, and a question mark. I owe who? Who do I owe? I want you to put it in your pocket, okay? Put it in your wallet. Keep it with you for a month. If you're lucky, you might be able to keep it in your wallet for a year. You'll see it, and you'll remember, I owe someone a debt of gratitude. Who is that person? Is it somebody at work? Is it somebody at home? Is it somebody in the community? Is it an extended family member? Is it God Himself? Who is that person that you should go back to and say out loud what's already in your heart? Say it out loud to them. I just want to thank you. You did this to me, and it helped me move forward. I have an assignment for the men. Before you start your car to go home today after church, turn to your wife and say to her, thank you for. Now I know as men you're saying, she's going to blow that off because I'm only saying it because Pastor Dave said to say it. She will not do that. Do not do that, women. It'll be the last thank you you ever hear. And wives, turn to your husband and say thank you for. And tell them what you're thankful for. And kids, I know you live in a culture of entitlement. It's not your fault. It's just been pushed on you, but you need to take the time to live above your culture. And so before you go home today, I want you to turn to your parent or parents and thank them for something. Don't just say you're thankful. Tell them what you're thankful for. You have no idea where that can lead in a relationship if we're people that say thanks. Let's pray together. Lord, help us to be returners. Help us to express our gratitude to you and to others. Help us to not take you or others for granted. Help us not to think that just because we're grateful on the inside, that others will know that we're grateful. Help us to express gratitude. Jesus said, we're not 10 healed. Where are the other 9? Help us, Father, to not live like the other 9. Help us to live like the returner who came back and said, thank you. And this we pray in Christ's name. Amen.